I would like to welcome everybody to our special edition webinar on Laser AI, the new generation tool for systematic reviews. It is a special event because we will, for the first time, present our tool in its new visual identity. So you will see how it looks like, how it works, and how you can use it in a step-by-step presentation. So the plan for today is to give a little introduction to Laser AI, how it started and why it is needed. Later, we will show the interface and the features of Laser AI, both for the role of manager and the researcher. Next, we will showcase the main features related to project management and the final results for screeners. At the end, we will talk a bit about upcoming features and future plans for the further development. So the first presentation will be held by Artur Nowak, who is a co-founder and CTO of Evidence Prime. He helps the brightest minds answer the most challenging questions in healthcare through his work in the area of artificial intelligence, especially in the context of systematic review automation. We will show the pre-recorded version of the presentation, but Artur is also here with us to answer any question. The second part of the webinar is held by Kuba Kulesza, who is product manager at Evidence Prime. He is responsible for designing and producing Laser AI, and his domain of expertise is human-computer interaction and user experience. He will talk today about the interface, current and upcoming features of Laser AI from the user's perspective. If you have any questions, you can always write them in the Q&A section.
Thank you very much. I would like to kick off this webinar with a few words about Laser AI, the background, the problem we are solving, the current state of the system, and our future plans. So, to many of you who do systematic reviews, they may actually feel like Sisyphean reviews. You screen many documents, you extract data from them, and then, when you are almost done, you rerun your search strategy only to find out that you have more documents to screen and more data to extract. This is a problem faced by many research teams. There are some studies showing that almost 25% of published systematic reviews become outdated within 2 years from publication, to the degree that they are no longer consistent with the current state of medical knowledge. So this is exactly the problem we decided to address with help of technology. One of the triggers for our work was the challenge co-organized by Environmental Protection Agency and National Toxicology Program in 2018. This was a hugely remarkable year for natural language processing. Many impactful studies were published back then, and this really triggered the exponential rise of accuracy of new language models. So here on this slide, you can see the result of our system at work. The task here was to annotate with different data types or fields some animal studies. This one that we have on the screen is about bisphenol A. And you can see that our model really, provides already quite high level of accuracy and also detail in annotating these reviews. So this triggered our work to further pursue this research direction. We also applied for funds from European Union to move these results also to the clinical domain. One of the first projects that we helped with was the systematic review commissioned by WHO on use of physical distancing, face masks and eye protection to prevent spread of COVID. This is a hugely impactful review, cited more than 3,000 times already, and it was finished in record time, especially given the large number of studies to screen. So in this particular case, we helped with training a model on one half of the decisions from these human screeners, and then applying this model to the second half of dataset, of the references. Then we did the same with the second half of the data, which you can see in yellow here. What we got as a result was a third screener, a list of decisions from the model that could be compared to the human decisions. We then went on to create user interface that will be demoed and explained at length by my colleague Kuba in the next session. And we began to help different organizations to address their systematic review needs through our work. So the approach that we take, this is something that we elaborated more during our previous webinar, is not to really give you a tool out of the shelf, but rather to engage in a multi-month process of analyzing, designing, implementing, and supporting a system that addresses particular pain points of every given organization. So you can already learn a little bit about this process from our work together with Federal Joint Committee in Germany, or EQUIC. And for both of these organizations, we provide tools through the public tenders. And we will be also presenting some of this work during the conference organized by EQUIC next week. A second case study that I wanted to share with you is the one where the number of references, the amount of potential evidence is so large that we can no longer screen it all. So this is also something that LASER helps with producing a ranking of all the studies, so you can first look at the ones that are the most promising to answer your clinical question. The very same model that we applied in this particular case study is also available within LASER, so you can use it in a review of any size, whenever you want to screen all the references, or due to some capacity limitations you are not able to do it all. We also developed a tool for data extraction, which was based on the work that we performed during this challenge that I mentioned. And we worked with National Toxicology Program to see how these models that we developed for the challenge, for this laboratory-like condition, translate to real-world application. We integrated this model with the user interface that I had on my previous slide, and National Toxicology Program, together with ICF, ran an evaluation study where they compared two people working together versus one person checking the suggestions coming from the model to see what are the differences. So, not very surprisingly, we were able to achieve around 50% reduction in time, and we are still able to maintain very high level of quality. Actually, level of quality that makes it suitable for many applications already. And of course, this system is still being improved. So where we are right now, we have modules for selection of documents, module for extracting data, and we already have prototypes for definition of scope or definition of search strategies, and also for the final part of this whole puzzle, which is having some sort of a data repository that collects all the data from the previous stages. So in terms of this last bit, I think that what is really important is to have some sort of a big picture in mind when we talk about tools like LASER. So far we were really focused on the systematic review process, and you could compare how LASER, for example, works in comparison with doing a systematic review in some other tool or even in some desktop application like Microsoft Excel. But really what integration of AI into the literature synthesis process gives you is wide a spectrum of new opportunities that were unthinkable before. And one of them is creation of so-called knowledge graphs, or how we call it, evidence graphs. So what you can really realize is that publications are only a small part of the whole world of different entities that coexist together to create what we call the scientific knowledge. We have information about what authors created these publications. These publications mention proteins, genes, substances, and they document different interactions between these entities. So, for instance, you can look at a tool like laser as a tool to create connections between diseases, outcomes, and publications that document these connections. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to meet all of you, and I hope we'll be able to answer your questions during the Q&A session.
So this was a short introduction by Artur. And now I would like to ask Kuba if you would like to share your screen and go on with your part of the presentation.
Thank you, Claudia. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. I always have to confirm. It's a great pleasure to be with you today, tonight, this morning. It depends on the place in the world where you are sitting right now. I'm going to show you first insights of the Laser AI, a product we were working at Evidence Prime on for some time. And I'm quite excited of making this because we know that there is still some things to do and still things to cover. But to be honest, I'm quite proud of what I'm going to show in a few seconds. So as Claudia is allowing me, I'm going to share my screen right now. And you are supposed to see the introduction to Laser AI.
Perfect.
The new generation tool for systematic reviews. And I'm going to show you this tool in its current shape, and I will try to cover different aspects and different user scenarios that can be applied in the process of performing the systematic review. And in this particular case, we will be talking about screening per se. So to make this whole presentation much more accessible, I would like to introduce you to my companions on this journey, which are Anne, manager, Bernard, researcher, and Celine, another researcher. Anne is my manager in organization, and she is responsible for organizing the whole team, managing the team, and managing the process of systematic review. Bernard and Celine are researchers. They are going to perform title and abstract and full text screenings. And just for you, just especially for your eyes, this morning I've recorded the whole story between Anne, Bernard, and Celine, and I'm going to play to you right now. So let me share my screen again. Everything I see is properly established, and I think that we can start. And the projects that are in it. So here Anne can browse through the projects list and see how many references were included into the projects, how many people are working in it, what is the current status when the project was created, and what is its deadline. What is also important and worth noticing, Anne can look at all projects in the system from the user's management perspective. And here, by browsing the projects, she can see what is the current occupation of particular project. By clicking on particular user, I've got also an overview of all projects that currently this user is involved in. This will help me to manage better my organization. But the most important part is to create and participate in the project itself. So this is something what I'm going to do right now and create a project as Anne, the manager. I click this button in the top right corner, provide a title for my screening project, Here I will put some deadline, which may be quite helpful. And now I have to decide about the project configuration. So usually I can stick to the standard workflow where there will be just two stages, title and abstract screening and full text screening. But I can also customize it a little bit and add some preliminary stage before title and abstract screening, or what will be introduced in the upcoming version of Laser, include also the data extraction stage. At this point, I will stick to the standard workflow and create project as an ANED manager. I'm directly moved to the project dashboard and I'm ready to set up it. So first thing I'm going to do is to import some references that were previously prepared by the library unit. So here I've got a batch with RIS file with all references. As far as I remember, there are 60 of them, so I need to wait a while until they will be ready into the system. So they are here, great. I've received a proper status of references. I can preview them. So all the references that were included in the RIS file are right now displayed on this list. When references are there, I'm ready to establish my team. So I'm going to introduce, invite both Bernard and Anne to the team. So there is Bernard. Anne is already in the team. So I was thinking about Celine. Great. My team is ready. From this point, I can move to set up the title and abstract screening stage. Here, as you can see, I've got all researchers that were invited to the project. I will start from creating an instruction and tags for this stage. So here we've got displayed some default setup. I'm going to upload another template I have prepared before for this particular project. And as you can see, what I'm basically doing here is I'm defining what the buttons in the screener's interface mean and what they exactly do. So for example, for the title and abstract screening, I only define the exclusion criteria. So in this case, I can have more than one exclusion criteria, and any criterion can be described by the instruction. But what is most important, I can provide some keywords also aligned with this particular button. I believe it will become more clear in a moment. But what I would like to present you is the way how the keywords can be added by the manager. For example, right now I added a keyword with a wildcard, and it will give me, will highlight me anything what, anything or something, anything what has this suffix thing in the end. When the keyword is keywords are created, when I provide some other criteria, I can also give some additional tag for the system, just for my screeners. Yep, and we see this in the bottom. I can go to the distribution, but before I distribute references, I need to decide about the screening mode. For the title and abstract screening, I decide to use single screening. This will just give my users less work, because right now they need to just review. If I decide to distribute the references proportionally, every of them will receive only 30 references to review. but I also can distribute the references individually. And in such a situation, I like more Celine than Bernard, so Bernard will get more work from me. Yes, because Celine is a friend of Anne. Bernard is a new guy, so he has to receive more work. So in such a configuration, I'm ready to switch to the Bernard's point of view, and then I can show you how the user perspectives look like in the laser. So now I'm looking at the Bernard's screen. The project I was invited to is in the top. Here I see that the title and abstract screening stage is already active, and as a user I've got 35 references to screen. So when I click this stage, the list of all references will appear, and what is worth noticing, already all keywords that were defined by manager are highlighted on the list. What is worth mentioning is that those highlights are not only on the titles, but also in the abstract of each reference. So when I open the abstract overview, I can see how the keywords are highlighted also in the text of the abstract. This configuration may help me to perform the screening. So right now I will do some random assignment of decisions. Please forgive me for this chaotic approach, but this is just for the demo purposes. I'm not reading the references that I include or exclude here, but just to show you how the screening works from the user perspective, I will perform some actions. And when the actions are performed, when I think, okay, it's enough to do for now, I can send the decisions to manager. And when the decisions were sent, they are final and they can be pushed automatically to the full text screening stage. So I will do one more decision and send the decisions. 21 decisions were sent, and right now they are on my manager's board. When I switch to the Anne's point of view, I can see that 7 references were already included, 14 were excluded. What I also want to show you is after performing some decisions, the model will learn what are the main way of applying decision to the references. And based on that, I can resort the list of references and apply new scoring to the list. This will result in sorting the set of references in a way that the more valid ones will be on the top on the list, and the less important will be in the bottom. So here this button with AI icon in it is activated, and when I click it, the list will be sorted automatically according to the model. Of course, my decisions were quite dummy, so we shouldn't stick to the way how it was shown. But here the decisions are, the references are sorted in the more accurate manner. What is also quite important and really helpful is that this model will work automatically when I am in such a called focus mode. In a focus mode, users will have just the abstract displayed, and with some additional info that is more put into the background of the screen. And from this view, I can perform screening in a similar way. And with my every decision, the order of references is changed because the model is working automatically. Of course, I may not like this highlights over here. This can be overcrowded. I can turn it off anytime. And when I do this, I'm still performing screening, see how the decisions were applied to the list of references. What is also worth mentioning that anytime I can preview the decisions I've done and I can change them. And as long they are not sent to my manager, I can also back them to the main pile of the references to review. Another thing I would like to show you is the way how I can change the highlights, change the keywords provided by manager. Anytime I can open the instruction and see what is supposed to be highlighted, what is not supposed to be highlighted. Also here I've got the information that is provided by my manager, but I can anytime remove or add any keywords that are here. So based on that, let me go quickly through the rest of the pile, just to finish my bunch of references to review. All tasks have been completed and they are ready to send to my manager. Great. How right now I switch to the Celine's point of view, but again it may take me some more time. So here I will just use this batch operation and perform quite different strategy of performing a screening. As a Celine, I decide to filter through all references that I receive, and let's focus on, let's say, placebo. I hope, yes, I found some references that contains the word placebo in it. As I see, one reference has it got in the title. The other keyword is find it as well. So when I open here, those are the references that contain the word placebo in it. So we can find the placebo over here, and of course the other keywords are highlighted as well. Based on that, I can perform some batch operation and included all references that contain the word placebo. Now I have to create the filters, and let me do another filtering. This time I can filter barrier and say that I don't want to have old references older than from 2010. So yeah, just this reference should be excluded, and based on my decisions that are totally applied randomly in this scenario, I can include rest of them. When all decisions were included, I can send them to my manager, and then the title and abstract screening stage will be finished. So I switch to the manager's view, and I see that the title and abstract screening is ready. So what I'm going to do is to start the full text screening, which is a little bit different. So when I look at the references list, I can see that a lot of them were included. Some of them were excluded, and I see the reason of exclusion already on the list. And also I see when the last decision was applied, what time of the last decision was applied. I can also get into the reference details. Here I don't have PDF yet. And in this reference details, I can preview the history of the reference and see what was happening with this particular reference. But yes, let's go to the, as I already mentioned, full text screening. Here I get the information that there's a lot of references without the PDF. But before we start the full text screening, I think that I can show you another quite interesting functionality, because even if I got that information that title and abstract screening is done, anytime I can upload another set of references. So I will upload the second batch of PDFs that I've got prepared on my hard drive. There will be, as I remember, another 60 references to review. And 51 of them, just 51 of them. And right now, when I switch to Titan abstract screening, I can see that there are still 51 references to be redistributed, and those are these references that I have uploaded moment ago. So again, I switch the single screening, instructions remain the same, but this time I decide that just Bernard has to go through all of them. And when it's done, everything is recalculated. I see that Bernard has to do more work. But let's skip it for now, and let's switch to the full text screening, because what is worth noticing, the Titan abstract screening can be still ongoing, where the full text screening can already start. So here the dashboard is quite similar, but what we have to do is to upload PDFs that will help us to not help us, that have to be there if we want to perform the full text screening. So in such a situation, I'm going to select some PDFs that I have prepared previously. There are a lot of them, so it may take a lot of time uploading. Here on this screen, I have to wait for a moment, and maybe that was a mistake, or the upload goes quite quickly. So I will try to put some words into this silence, not to keep your bored looking how this indicator is rising step after step. Why I'm showing it to you is that because when we upload the PDFs, they will be automatically matched with all references that were previously uploaded into the system. So we don't have to prepare any manual work on matching the PDFs with uploaded references. So for more than 100 references, it goes quite quickly, and it is almost there. Yep, yeah, we are. So I'm going to take a sip of water. Yes. 111 files were successfully uploaded. And now when I go to the references screen, I can see how the PDFs are started to be matching. So some of them are already matched. Some of them are still processed by the machine. But if machine couldn't recognize if the PDF is properly matched with a reference, then we can do this manually. And we can display the preview of a reference, then find it on the list and assign it manually. But let's drop it for now and go to the full text screening. Here we've still got information about some missing references, but 37 studies are ready to be distributed among my reviewers. This is something what I'm going to do right now, and I will this time distribute reference proportionally. I'm in the double screening mode, so every reference will be looked twice. The distribution is going. Yeah, counters are okay, and now I'm again switching to the view of Bernard's. And as you can see, Bernard received the additional references to screen in the Titan abstract screening, but he is already ready to screen the references in the full text screening. So here, when I open the list, it will be quite similar to the list from the Titan abstract screening, with the main difference that the keywords are not yet there. What is also important, and something what I forgot to show you, is to how to set up instructions for the full text screening. This is again the Anne's point of view as a manager. And here we can change the position of reasons for our users. We are configuring this form in the right side. We can add some additional reasons. Unfortunately, I already distributed the references, so this is not possible. But before I would distribute references, this can be still done. But at this point, I can add still some interesting tags if it is applicable. So distinct reference, something what can be added anytime or remove anytime. This is saved. Great. So as I said, now I'm looking at the Bernard's point of view, and I've got my 37 references to screen. I can filter again using some applied tags from a previous stage. And I can search among different fields. Let's find me an author, and there is it. So it works as expected. And to perform screening in the full text screening, I don't have this additional list in the bottom. I'm going directly to the focus mode. And here, I can read the whole PDF that was already included and matched with this reference. I can apply some decision. First of all, I would like to apply my tag that I provided a moment ago, to confirm this when I say great reference. Now I can provide some decisions. There is a various logic of applying decisions. I don't want to get into the details right now, but let's exclude this one. When I apply some decision to a reference, it can be the next reference is automatically loaded into the screen. So here we've got another one, and so on and so forth. I don't want to perform the whole full text screening over here. So what I'm going to do is to show you the already nice developed project that I have prepared previously as a well-prepared cook in the television. You know, anytime when I'm showing how the meal is prepared, suddenly I'm taking out from the oven the another before prepared the meal. So here I can show you something about the conflicts, because during the performing full text screening, my two reviewers, both Bernard and Celine, disagree on some of the elements, on some of the references. So I can display these two conflicts and see what is the main reason of disagreement. So I see that some action is required, and I can perform different actions regarding this disagreement. So as a manager, I've got a full set of strategies that I can apply to the conflict solution. And I can imagine that I've got a really long list of conflicts, and I already have not so much time to solve them. So on my own responsibility, I can apply those strategies, and in this case only in versus out conflicts were identified. I can pick one of the strategies. I can decide that the conflicts should go back to the reviewers itself, and they need to decide on their own how they should be solved. But as I said, I may not have a time, and I'm quite sure about the set of the references that were included or excluded into the system. I can also trust more Celine than Bernard and decide that anytime Celine made a decision, she is always right. Again, this is something what I take on my own responsibility, but it may be helpful. The third strategy I would like to apply is just to point which decision should be applied anytime. So in case in versus out, we should always include the decisions. So as I said, we've got a different conflict resolution strategies over here, and they can be applied in a different context. We can even solve conflicts related to in versus in. So we can imagine a situation that anytime when there is an in versus out disagreement, we can return it to the reviewers. But anytime when there is an in versus in, we can pick one of the reasons as the more important one. In this situation, I will include both of them and go to the last part, maybe not last part. Let me also show you how the references can be filtered by the managers. So here I can pick all of the references. I see that here is it not included yet. Decision, it's not here, but for example, I can filter by all included in the title and abstract screening. What we plan to introduce that when this list is filtered according to one of the criteria over here, we can export this list to the RIS file. So for example, you can imagine that based on the whole set of references, we are creating a subset based on the decisions that were provided during the screening. And also what is quite important and something what I already mentioned, I can see the full history of this particular reference and see what happens. I can find this reference, the conflicted one, but I'm not sure which one it was, probably one of these included, and show you how the conflict was shown in the history. So even this that I decided to apply automatic conflict resolution is shown in this history of a reference. The final step is the PRISMA diagram, which is what we are looking at is a quite early version of it, but still it gives us a lot of possibilities. For example, first of all the data that were developed during the process are automatically included into the PRISMA diagram. Right now, as we remember, we are in the double screening mode, and even if there are some conflicts, we solve them as in, so we've got finally included 3 studies, but still we've got a 77 to review, so if with 3 included, 74 to review. We can change the labels of the each field. So reports not retrieved, we can say that there were not PDFs, which is a synonym for this situation. And from this perspective, we can export the PRISMA diagram into PNG or SVG format and save it on our hard drive and put it to a spot we want to put it later. And I think that would be all regarding the current status of laser. Now I will say something about our upcoming plans. So just to here we've got the PRISMA diagram exported directly from the system. Okay, so let's back to the real life and lifetime. And after this quite long presentation of multiple functionalities that the laser AI has got at this point of time, I can tell something about some future plans for laser AI, something what we plan to release in upcoming autumn this year. So first of all, we are working on the user interface upgrade based on the research we performed, based on the tests and all usability fixing sessions. We are constantly trying to increase the ergonomical aspect of our interface. So this is something what we are focused on right now. But also at the same time, we identified some spots in our system that can be automated. So we also want to make the whole tool much more fluent and accessible for our users. And the biggest change we can expect this year is integration with a data extraction module. So then we can cover fully the whole flow of the screening systematic review process. Regarding the user interface, we already have some initial sketches. We already want to apply by the update of the new features, also upgrade the whole interface. Here we, for example, see an example of automation that you want to include into the system. And for this point, I would like to finish my short presentation. Thank you for your attention, and I giving back a microphone to Claudia. Hello.
Thank you so much. This was really interesting. Thank you. And we do have some questions for you and for Artur also in the Q&A. So the first question, laser is already tested to do the systematic reviews on animal studies. Question is it used in human study? If yes, what is the success rate for that study?
Yes, so I can answer this question. So currently we don't have an evaluation study for human health. Such a study is very, I would say, time consuming and also costly because we basically need to extract a large number of papers. We had more than 50 in this evaluation study that I had in my slide using 2 teams of reviewers. So, but we are planning to do something like this, of course. So we are now planning to introduce a second version of the data extraction tool, and then we hope to team up with some team of researchers to conduct such a study also for the clinical domain.
Thank you, Artur. Another question to you. Is there any options to use the Boolean operator NOT?
So currently it's not possible in the filters. Thank you for this question. But it's a very good suggestion, and we will work on adding this to our roadmap.
Thank you. Next question is, how do I prepare the list of references for import?
So we support RIS or RIS files, which can be produced by EndNote or any search library like PubMed. These files are then consumed, and we are also exporting them at the end of the process. So this way we can fit into some existing workflow.
Perfect. Then we have another question. Is the name of the PDF file important for it to be matched appropriately, or does the model access mainly metadata and the body of the PDF in order to match it to the corresponding reference? We also have some discussion here already, people answering it. Artur, would you like to add something?
Yeah, so the strategy right now is that we first look at the file name, and the file name that we support is the typical format that is used by EndNote to rename the files within the tool. And if we fail to match a reference based on the file name, then we look at the content and the metadata of the file. So we try to extract the author, the title from the PDF text.
Another question, can we download PRISMA in Word file?
So it's
I don't know.
currently not possible, but thank you also for this suggestion. You can quite easily insert these files into Word because the two formats that we export right now are compatible with Microsoft Word.
Perfect. Another question. Are there any artificial intelligence capabilities planned to aid in screening or data extraction?
So currently, what also Kuba provided, we have a model that learns from the decisions of the screeners. So this is so-called active learning paradigm, in which every decision you make is used almost instantly by the model to re-rank the remaining references. And if you use our focus mode, then you will also always be presented with the most relevant references first. And for the data extraction, we have the models that I quickly touched on during my presentation that highlight different pieces of information in the PDF. Of course, this is the current state of the tool that we provide to the groups that we work with. But in our laser lab, we already have the next generation of automation, and I hope that we will be able to share them with you very soon.
Perfect. There are also some questions if we could get access to laser to test this with our processes.
So currently, we are working with some number of larger organizations to provide laser as some sort of a solution to their workflow problems. So we work in such a way that we analyze the problems that they currently have, and we try to build a tool based on laser or build a solution using laser to address these issues. So our current focus is on groups that, let's say, conduct a number of systematic reviews, because this is the kind of capabilities and functionality that we want to prioritize in our work. However, soon enough, we are also going to open the tool for wider use, and we'll be in touch with you. I hope that we'll be able to reach out to you once it's also possible.
We have a few more questions. First on highest, how many studies or references can be filtered at a time?
So there is, let's say, no technical limitation. We have some projects with more than 10,000 references, and in our testing, it still works relatively well. Of course, the larger the list of references, the longer it will take to filter them. But there is, let's say, no technical limitation on the number of records.
Perfect. Can references load to EndNote when the final body of evidence is determined?
Yes, so the export from the screening tool is a RIS file that you can load back to EndNote. And for the Dexter tool, so for the data extraction, the output currently is a CSV or JSON file that you can also use in some statistical analysis later on. But we are also working on adding export to EndNote XML files to make it even more seamless to interact with EndNote.
There is also a question if we are planning to release an alpha as an open source, and if we do, what's the programming language used?
Yes, so we are not planning to release the tool as open source. The current, let's say, state of the tools for automation of systematic reviews and systematic reviews in large is really quite ripe in terms of the number of open source tools. I mean, there is some number of open source tools that you can already use. However, the problem here is that for many organizations, they need to have some sort of a corporate entity behind the project to make sure that this project will be supported in the future. There is some user support also, some security compliance, and also there is some team that is always ready to do customizations. So for this reason, we think that the value that we provide to the community is to provide this as a package together with the services that we have, and that would not be sustainable if we release this as an open source project. Yeah, at the same time, I just also wanted to say that we try to be very transparent in terms of the machine learning models that we use, and we either publish our methods as papers, or we point to the existing papers if we implement something that was already published. So at the same time, even if this is not open source, we are trying to be very open about the methods that we apply.
Thank you, Artur. I wanted to say that I have sent links to our social media and also our email address for any more questions you have. And also we have some more questions, but we run out of time. So we will distribute an article with a summary of the Q&A session and summary of the webinar. And I would like to thank everybody for your questions, for your participation, and also you, Kuba and Artur, for the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.